Leroy Sane, the newest link with Arsenal, one that's kind of popped in and out over the last couple of years, but he's obviously up with his contract at the end of the season with Bayern Munich, meaning he will be a free agent in just a couple of days at this point. And it seems like one that maybe makes more sense in the media than makes sense for Arsenal. I can't imagine Leroy Sane, who has got to be on 250 to 300,000 euros a week, so about 220 to 250,000 pounds a week wages at Bayern Munich, who's going to turn 30 in January, who's coming off just a 19 goal contribution season in about 45 appearances for Bayern Munich, is possibly one of the top options for Arsenal. That feels a little bit like a desperation move. And for a player who's just not at the top of his game anymore. He's not a top-level, top talent anymore, the way he was at Manchester City for so long. Any player that Manchester City has moved on from, for the most part, seems like a player we need to avoid, especially now that they've moved on from him 3 years ago. Yes, Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, those summers that we got them, they were incredible for us. But they were still kind of reaching their prime ages, right? We got them at around 25, 26 years old. Leroy Sane going to be 30 this year. This, again, screams to me of media speculation, agent-driven, trying to up that potential next contract for Leroy Sane as other clubs like Tottenham are swooping in. I could see him going to Juventus. I could see him at Barcelona. I could see him at PSG. But for him to come to Arsenal doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in my opinion, and not a player that I would be wanting to pay and ruin our wage structure over. I mean, he'd be our third or fourth highest earner for a player who certainly doesn't get into our starting 11. He doesn't play over Saka. I don't see him playing down the left. He doesn't really fix those issues. Transitionally, still spectacular, but definitely has lost a bit of pace. I just imagine that this is not a signing that we will be making. And the Benjamin Cesco saga continues to go on with that price ranging. The reports on Benjamin Cesco, as they were last summer and they were in this winter, are insane. Last summer it was, he has a release clause at 60 million euros. But if he decides to play, his contract's going to get up, that will go down. This January, re-signs a new contract, but the concept was there isn't a release clause, quote unquote, in the contract, but if a good offer comes from a club that Cesco's interested in, Leipzig will respect his choice to leave and not make it into a massive bidding war. So what that has brought us at this point is I've seen rumor prices from 59 million pounds to 84 million pounds. I mean, that is a nearly 30 million pound range for a 21-year-old striker. 85 million pounds would be too much for Benjamin Cesco. I think 60 to 65 is right where his value is in terms of his age and his ability, and also the fact that he does want to leave. So at a certain point, Leipzig will have to bite the bullet and sell the player. And 60 to 65 million for a 21-year-old who they purchased from their own club at Salzburg. Basically, not a free transfer, but not a transfer that they need to worry too much about. It just feels like that is the right range, and especially his wages won't be too crazy. I would guess around 150,000 pounds per week. 21-year-old, that's a bit pricey, but we were paying Nketiah 100,000 pounds a week, and he sold for 40 million. So just looking at elevator of wages and how that might work, where Champions League club, yada yada, that appears to be the number that makes most sense. So I think Cesco will go to Arsenal. That is my prediction. He is an Arsenal player come July 1, 65 million. It's probably 60 with 10 to 12 million add-ons. That probably ends up being in the 65 to 68 million range in total. Benjamin Cesco will be Arsenal's number 9, especially with the reports coming out today that Kai Havertz will still probably be preparing for him to be the number 9 for a majority of the games. So 21-year-old like Cesco or Ekitike, who I would have liked to be more involved with, but doesn't seem like he's more likely to go to Chelsea or Liverpool. So Cesco seems to fit the age profile of a player who isn't going to be demanding every single match, can partner well, in terms of switching off game time with Havertz, and has that ability and that ceiling to really explode. Marcus Rashford looks to be inching closer to a deal to Barcelona for around 40 million euros. And I do wonder if Arsenal will regret not at least exploring this signing. Listen, Rashford is definitely past the best we've seen him at. But he's only 27. There's no reason he can't regain that. I do think he will flourish at Barcelona in that system. I think he will be wonderful for them in the Champions League. He'll have a solid La Liga return, but just really feels like a player who can exceed and excel in the way that Hansi Flick plays. I think Rashford will probably go early in the summer, and so for Arsenal to make that signing would, to me, be like a second-tier signing. Like if we were to go spend huge on a striker, somehow we were to get Isak, which we aren't, but somehow if we were to get an Isak, or we spent massive on a striker, or even if we went and spent a huge amount of money on a right wing type of player, and we could get Rashford for £35 million as kind of rotation left wing option, can play some striker, and convince him not to be on £350,000, £400,000 a week. Be interesting to me, because we know what Arteta can do to kind of revive careers in some ways and kind of save players from their own turmoil. But I understand not wanting to take the risk. It just feels like one that we maybe would want to explore. Rashford has ball striking, transitional threat, all the things we're missing in that front three. And has really been very solid in the Premier League, even in his worst seasons. I mean, just played 10 matches for Villa, and it took him a few to get up to speed in the Premier League, but 2 goals and 2 assists, and was very, very crucial in their Champions League efforts and FA Cup efforts. So it doesn't feel like Marcus Rashford's going to be an Arsenal player, but maybe one that we look back on and thought maybe we should have been a little bit more interested. We've spoken so much about that second goalkeeper. And for just £5 million, Kepa Arrizabalaga, the old Chelsea goalkeeper who was Bournemouth's #1 all season on loan from Chelsea, is available for just £5 million. And listen, I want to sign Joan Garcia for €21 million. I think that's a no-brainer. If it's there, he wants to come, that you make that happen. This is the future best goalkeeper in the world. Seems like he is already going to be top 10, 15 in the world in the next year or two. Could be the perfect thing. Another season of David Raya as we move it on to Joan Garcia. But should that look like it's not coming to fruition? Should it look like Newcastle or Aston Villa or Barcelona or Manchester City, any of the many rumored clubs who are interested in him, are making big headway on that deal? It has been rumored that Joan Garcia has already made his decision. Kepa for £5 million as a backup option is a very, very strong option. Really good player with the ball at his feet. Had a very solid season for Bournemouth. Listen, you're not going to go get a player who can replace David Raya. We understand that. But literally, Kepa is the reason Neto was available on loan to Arsenal. And Neto was our backup keeper this year. For £5 million to get a guy with the experience that Kepa has, who's played in all competitions, played in La Liga, played in Premier League, played in the Champions League, the Europa League, played all over the place, been through all situations, has been a backup, has been a starter, a player who just gets it, who's also fits into the Spanish mold a little bit, which we are creating, the Spanish spine in some elements, especially if a Nico Williams comes. I think it makes a lot of sense for £5 million. And I think Arsenal definitely need to be interested in another one where if Joan Garcia isn't happening, act fast, go sign Kepa. And you know what? Even if Kepa doesn't work out, you have Tommy Setford around as well as the third goalkeeper. You're probably selling Carl Hayne for a similar amount of fee. So this is kind of a one-for-one free option that just makes sure we don't end up in a situation we did this year with Neto. That is the key, and it has to be avoided. This business all needs to get done early in the window. Get a lot of business done by July 1, then worry about your sales, and then go from there with whatever's left over. Thanks for watching Arsenal Report. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're back daily with videos covering all the summer transfer window, gossip, rumors, news, and how those players will fit into the side.